I'm here in front of one of the great archaeological discoveries of our time, the mysterious Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Hello, I'm Michael Eisner, head of the Walt Disney Company. In an unprecedented move, the Walt Disney Imagineers have brought, piece by piece, this incredible treasure to America. You can now tour the Temple of the Forbidden Eye at Disneyland in Anaheim, California. But first, a warning. If you choose to explore the temple, be aware that some say an evil and treacherous curse hangs over this ancient building. Enter at your own risk, and I'm out of here.
Welcome to Inside the Castle, the channel where we discuss the history, secrets, and future of all things Disney. Today we're talking about the Disneyland attraction Indiana Jones Adventure, Temple of the Forbidden Eye. The attraction, located in Adventureland, is based on the blockbuster Indiana Jones franchise. The ride is meant to take place a year before the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and in the same year as the events of Temple of Doom. Indy sure was a busy man. To understand how this ride came to be, we have to travel back to 1989 and head to the other side of the country to what was then known as Disney MGM Studios. In late August, the almost 4-month-old park debuted a new show to attract visitors called the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. The show was an instant hit with parkgoers, seating over 2,000 guests every few hours and would last 25 minutes. The show's large auditorium would help with crowd control on those busy summer days. Because of the success of Indy's Epic Stunt Spectacular, Disney's Imagineering and George Lucas were quick to jump on the opportunity to collaborate on another Indiana Jones attraction within Disney parks. Like many iconic Disney attractions, the ride went through a lot of stages before they arrived at the final enhanced motion vehicle dark ride outcome. Similar to Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion, they first looked at making the ride into a walk-through adventure. This would prove to not be thrilling enough for the Indiana Jones name, and they looked at a high-speed minecart adventure through a temple. While this idea closely replicates the ride we have today, they chose to change many aspects from the drawing board design. One of the most unique ideas that was inevitably scrapped was the idea of using the Jungle Cruise as a ferry to drop off guests that would want to ride the Indiana Jones adventure, and would hopefully cut down on expected long queues for the attraction. While they did eventually reroute the cruise, they opted not to use it as a ferrying service, but they did change much of the decor to fit the 1930s time period of Indiana Jones. When they invented the enhanced motion vehicles for the ride, it gave them much more control over individual experiences for the attraction. The vehicle took the appearance of a battered military vehicle that had 4 tires and was driven by hydraulic rotors that provide forward motion. Each transport can hold 12 guests with 3 rows sitting 4 across. The maximum speed of the ride is only 14 miles per hour, but because of the way the hydraulics in the vehicle work, lifting the transport up and dropping it back down while appearing to move forward makes the ride seem much faster than it is. Well, the lifts as well as some conveniently placed wind effects. They change the speed of the ride depending on how busy the ride is and to keep the vehicles at a safe distance from each other. The vehicle is unable to go reverse, so in that scene where the boulder is falling, the transport actually never backs up. The hydraulics of the ride just play a little trick on you. A few years later, they would mimic the vehicle in Disney's Animal Kingdom at Countdown to Extinction, later renamed to Dinosaur. It would also appear as a Forbidden Eye clone in Tokyo Disney Sea called Temple of the Crystal Skull, not to be confused with the 4th installment and black sheep of the Indiana Jones franchise, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They broke ground on the Disneyland Indy ride in August of 1993, with more than 400 Imagineers working on the project being led by the legendary Tony Baxter. They destroyed the Eeyore parking lot to make room for the show building, but kept a little piece of it in the new queue, as an Easter egg for guests to spot. To promote the new ride, the Disney Channel premiered a half-hour segment titled The Indiana Jones Adventure, where Karen Allen and John Rhys Davis reprised their role as Marion and Sala from Raiders of the Lost Ark. They started another promotion 40 days before the attraction opened where they would hand vouchers with paid admission that could then be exchanged for unique cards. Each card would showcase a landmark attraction of the year starting in 1955. They had a soft opening for the ride on March 3rd, where they invited a handful of celebrity guests to experience the attraction before the general public. Of course, George Lucas and Michael Eisner were there, but Dan Aykroyd, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carrie Fisher, Brendan Fraser, and Wayne Gretzky all made an appearance along with many other California faces. The day of the soft opening, they also produced a larger 41st card in the style of the Indiana Jones movie posters. The ride opened to the general admission the following day. Now that we've discussed how the ride came to be, let's look at the design, story, and scenes that make up the ride. Here we travel back to 1935, to the Bengalese jungle in India. Dr. Indiana Jones has put together fragments from a map scroll of parchment which point to a legendary temple. The temple, said to hold many priceless artifacts, had been buried underneath a fine silt carried in by a flood of the Lost River Delta. The temple is overlooked by the deity Mara, who offers one of 3 gifts to any visitor to the temple: earthly riches, eternal youth, or visions of the future. Dr. Jones' excavation has run out of money, and Sala has come to the rescue, offering guided tours to visitors seeking treasure. Many visitors have found riches beyond their wildest belief, while others have gone missing. Among those missing is Indiana Jones, who had ventured deep into the temple in search of the temple's power source, the mysterious Jewel of Power. Marcus Brody has instructed Sala to continue with the guided tours in hopes of finding Dr. Jones. In the queue of the ride, you can find many callbacks to the Indiana Jones films, as well as some Easter eggs and props. As soon as you jump into the queue, you will come face to face with a 2.5-ton Mercedes-Benz diesel truck, which was used in the Raiders of the Lost Ark film. There is also a small mining cart next to the truck that was used in Temple of Doom. As you walk through the outdoor queue, you'll walk around a massive generator which kicks on and off frequently to give off the appearance of powering the lights in the temple. You then will enter the temple, which is themed magnificently. Hieroglyphics litter the walls, and they can be translated to English. When the ride first opened, guests were given decoder cards to translate the hieroglyphics, but this only lasted a couple of months. While AT&T was the sponsor of the ride from 1995 to 2002, guests would receive one of 3 decoder cards as an advertisement for the company on the back. There is a hole in the temple that appears to be held up by bamboo. If the right pole is pulled, spikes will jut out of the ceiling and appear to lower on the guests, calling back to a scene in Temple of Doom. There is also a rope in one of the main chambers that, if pulled, will result in a response from Dr. Done-For Bullet, an out-of-sight archaeologist supported by the rope. Many of the crates in the same chamber call back to the movies as well. One has the number 9906753, which refers to the crate the Ark of the Covenant is located in at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Another crate reads, "Deliver to Club Obi-Wan." While this is an obvious reference to Star Wars protagonist Obi-Wan Kenobi, it is also the name of the club that starts the events of Temple of Doom. Then guests will walk into the film room and watch newsreels about the temple and Dr. Jones, as well as the safety clip from Sala. This is the room that hosts the old Eeyore parking sign mentioned earlier. Just before you get to the loading dock for the ride, you get a small peek into Indy's office, where you can see a Life magazine with Mickey and Minnie on it. Now, let's jump aboard our EMVs and take a look at the ride itself. The first room that you enter is the Chamber of Destiny. When the ride was first built, the Chamber of Destiny was a magnificent feat for guests to experience. There is one real doorway in the middle of 4 facades that resemble other doorways. Only 3 of the doors could be seen at a time, as there were moving walls and ceilings that would hide the other 2. There are also decoy tracks on the ground to enhance the effect. Each door was lit differently, and it would appear that guests could enter any of the 3 rooms but would always go through the same doorway. In 2015, Disney had removed the moving wall and ceiling effect in place of projector effects to make it seem different each time the rider enters. This set up which of the 3 gifts Mara is bestowing upon the tourists. Through the doorway in the Chamber of Secrets, you then enter the Hall of Promise. This room also uses projection technology to convey the gift the tourists have received. Blue for the Fountain of Youth, along with Mara saying the words, "You have chosen wisely. This path leads to timeless youth and beauty." Gold for the Chamber of Earthly Riches, along with the words, "You seek the treasure of Mara. Glittering gold, it is yours." And finally, the transport will tilt upwards towards dazzling star fields for the Observatory of the Future, with the words, "You seek the future. I will lift the curtain of time. It is your destiny." As you approach the giant statue of Mara in this room, someone in your party is guaranteed to look into Mara's eyes, which causes the statue to scowl and bleed with color. Mara then bellows, "You looked into my eyes. Your path now leads to the gates of doom." Mara used to yell, "Infidels, foolish mortals, or no, before uttering this line, but that was removed in the 2012 refurb. You then enter a crumbling corridor as lightning strikes the walls and cobra statues illuminate from the ceiling, and we get our first sight of Indiana Jones as his animatronic is seen using all his strength to keep the doors shut. He scolds the tourists for looking into the eyes of Mara and directs them to take the path on the left. Your transport then approaches a giant room lit by lava. This is the most impressive room in the entire ride. In the distance you can see a rickety bridge and another transport full of tourists crossing it. You'll also notice the 45-foot tall stone face of Mara, which will illuminate a green beam out of its eye right at the vehicle, which causes flames to erupt from where the beam hits. There used to be another effect here where dried ice would fall from the ceiling, simulating rocks falling in the crumbling temple, but this was stopped at some point as the ice would melt and rust the area they were falling from. If you listen close, you can still hear the sound effect that was paired with it. From here, the vehicle takes a sharp turn left into a tunnel full of skeletons, some which jump out at the EMV. The tunnel slowly goes pitch black as the vehicle's headlights turn off. As they flicker back on, you'll be shown a projection of beetles scattering across the wall. As you exit this tunnel, you approach the rickety bridge you saw the other transport on earlier. It looks as though another vehicle is going to come meet you head on, but it turns away at the last second. The bridge feels how it looks, and will jostle the passengers every which way. As the vehicle makes its way across the bridge, it will take a right and enter a room where the walls are littered with snakes before coming face to face with a giant cobra animatronic. This animatronic is known to break down frequently, but the sound effects of it jumping out at you will still play if it's not in motion. After the snake room, you take a sharp right and enter the room full of skulls. There's actually 1,995 skulls in this room, but none of them are real, unlike the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at the same park. This room is very hard to focus on as it feels like you fly through it at high speed and you can't take in the sheer amount of work the Imagineers put into its design. At the end of the room, the vehicle will narrowly avoid an exploding lava rock and veer off into a pitch-black tunnel. The transport stops for a moment, as special effects make it look like rats are falling into the vehicle from a hanging tree branch. It then kicks back into gear and jerks the passengers down a hallway littered with skeletons throwing spears. Blasts of air hit the riders as they go down the passage, to make it feel like the spears just narrowly miss. After the tunnel, you come into the climax of the ride. Your vehicle stops, and Indy hangs above you on a rope in the only light of the room. He welcomes the transport, and asks that they turn on their headlights and allow him to join them. When the lights turn on, a giant boulder shows up from behind Indiana Jones and appears to be rolling towards the transport, though it's not actually moving. It is just rolling in place, and the walls around it move backwards to give it the forward roll look they are going for. This effect, combined with the EMV's tilting to make it seem like you go backwards and down, really calls for a thrilling finish. After your vehicle descends downward into darkness, you'll take a right turn and come across another Indiana Jones animatronic, standing in a heroic pose in front of the boulder you just watched come down. The animatronic will wipe its forehead and say any one of 8 phrases, including my favorite, tourists. Why'd it have to be tourists? As you pull away from Indy, the triumphant Indiana Jones music will play, and Sala will come over the speakers in your EMV to remind you to remain seated. Most of the music in the ride comes from the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie, but there are a couple pieces from Temple of Doom and Last Crusade. They also use some big band music from the 1930s in the queue to really convey the theming. Did you happen to catch the mummy wearing Mickey ears when we sped through the tunnel full of skeletons? It was placed there by senior artisan at Imagineering, Tony Bones Scortino. His co-workers had gotten it for him as a gift while they were working on the ride, and he placed it on that skeleton for safekeeping, but ended up liking it so much that they all decided to keep it there as a hidden Mickey. 6 years after the opening of the Indiana Jones adventure in Disneyland, Disney opened the sister coaster at Tokyo Disney Sea. In this ride, Indy is searching for the Fountain of Youth, as it showcases an Aztec theme. This ride does have some differences from the Disneyland version, but is best saved for another episode. So what's next for the Indiana Jones adventure? Well, hopefully they will not change much with the original ride in Disneyland, and as of now, they aren't planning to. But since its inception, people have wondered if the ride was coming to Walt Disney World. Rumors have been floating the past few years about Dinoland at Disney's Animal Kingdom getting an overlay to be Indy-themed. I, for one, do not think that this is very likely. Yes, Dinosaur the Ride does share the exact track layout and is in need of some repair, but it is a staple of the park and should not be removed or redesigned, just refurbished. And since they already scrapped the idea of Beastly Kingdom, In favor of Pandora, it would be a shame to remove the other half of that entire affair to focus on another film franchise. That doesn't truly belong in this park. I think it is more likely that we see an Indiana Jones ride appear in Disney's Hollywood Studios in attempts to expand the park even further. The idea of Indy at DHS is already there with the stunt show, and with the upcoming release of Indy 5, it would make sense to re-theme some of that park with more Indiana Jones spectacle. And the big question surrounding Indy 5? Will we find out what happened to Short Round after the events of Temple of Doom? Who knows? But what do you think will happen with Indiana Jones in the Florida park? Do you think they'll re-theme Dinoland or add an extension onto Hollywood Studios? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your takes. Well, that's about as deep as we can go in this thrilling Adventureland attraction. If you have a suggestion for which ride you want us to tackle next, let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you can explore further inside the castle. I thank you for taking this peek inside the castle with me, and I hope you'll join me for the next installation.